Welcome to another Lightblade Learning Lab. Up to now, I've been using my little Ultrabook here as my programming tool for RDWorks, and I always output the file onto a memory stick and transfer it to the machine. Now this works extremely well, and I've been doing all my work up to now with you guys in this manner. Today I'm being a bit opportunistic because I've got a service engineer from Thinklaser visiting. Purex have decided to change the specification of some of the filtration inside their unit, and he's coming down to fit new filters for me. Now while he's here, he's a very competent technical guy. I'm going to get him to set up a Wi-Fi system between my machine and my Wi-Fi system in here. So basically my machine is out in a cold workshop, and I certainly don't want to sit out there using and controlling the machine. I'd much rather do most of the programming, send files down and keep it linked up to something like this, which I can walk around with either in the office or in the workshop and control the machine. Although most of you guys will find life very easy because you'll have a cable near your machine, so you can plug straight into your network. Now the other alternative is to hook this machine up with a USB to the machine. But again, that means that I can't walk around with it. I've got to be stuck at the machine to do the programming and the downloading. I think the best solution for me is to have a Wi-Fi link between here and the machine. My competence level at doing that is pretty close to zero. So what I'm going to do, as I said, I'm going to be opportunistic. I'm going to use his skills to set that link up between the machine and my PC here. So today's session is really all about enabling my machine to be a Wi-Fi driven machine. We need to connect this up via an Ethernet connection just to get everything set up. And to do that, he needed an Ethernet port in here. Now this does not come, because it's a little compact Ultrabook, it doesn't come with an Ethernet port. The best that it's got is a couple of USB ports. So I've been back into my computer museum and dug out a really old laptop which has got every port you could ever imagine on it, and we've had to use this horrendously slow machine to set up with.
I'm now going to hand you over to a technical expert that is going to interfere with my PC and my network in the nicest way possible. He knows what he's talking about, so I'll let him carry on with the conversation.
Although your laptop is on the Wi-Fi, if you had network available in the garage, you could just plug the machine into the network and you'd be connected via your Wi-Fi. But the key thing is that there's no LAN available in the garage with the machine.
Yeah.
So the bridge effectively bridges a gap in the cabling.
Yeah.
So as far as the machine is concerned, it will be wired into your home network.
Yeah. Okay.
Via this bridge.
Yeah, okay. Right.
And then any machine on your network could then access it, whether it's wired or whether it's wireless. Regardless of whether you're going to be connecting the machine directly on a Ethernet cable or via your bridge, then the machine itself, the Lightblade, will need an IP address.
Okay.
So most devices that you connect to your network, like your phone or your laptop, they ask your home router for an IP address.
Yeah.
But in the case of the machine, it only does static IP addresses. So first of all, we need to work out what range you want the machine on, so the IP range. So to do that, because this laptop is connected to your network already, then if I check what IP address the machine is on, I'll know what range that the router's using.
But you can create an IP address for the laser.
I'll find out what range that the router uses, and then I just pick an IP address that's not being used on that range. We're on Windows XP here, but it's no different if you're on 7 or 10. So you just go to your start or your orb on the later operating systems and type CMD, and then press enter or click OK.
So that just gets into the command line.
That gives you a command prompt, and then on here it's one command. So if I type ipconfig space /all, then it'll spew out a load of data to me. But because we're on the Wi-Fi, I'll look up the wireless connection on here. So there is Ethernet adapter wireless network connection. That's telling me that the laptop IP address is 192.168.
Which laptop is that?
It's this laptop.
That's that laptop. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Is 192.168.1.162.
Yes.
The router is this DHCP server or default gateway that is on 254. So
Okay.
it's on the same range.
Yeah.
192.168.1, and then to get to your router it would be 254. Or this device that's a client for that router
Yeah.
is on 162. Just to prove that and check we've got connectivity, I will bring up the login page for your router by just tapping that address into the browser. So I already know enough information, which is that the laser will need to be on 192.168.1 and then a spare address that's not being used, because otherwise we'd have an IP conflict. So every device has got its own number, like an address. So I can stick the machine on .1.200 and I'd be quite confident that there's nothing on there. So if your browser starts up, so if I type this number into the address bar...
You sure you know what you're doing?
Oh, I'm sure my computer's faster than that one. So there you go. So
it had to build up a head of steam, remember?
Yeah, it's like it just reminds me of dial-up. No, it's fine. So this router is on that address, and we've now managed to access your router.
Yeah.
So for the laser, we will use .200.
Okay.
Your devices are there's DHCP enabled.
Yeah.
Which means the device can ask the router for an IP address, and then the router hands out IP addresses. So here, for example, Russ PC.
Yeah.
That's telling me that the DHCP server, as in the router, has given your PC that IP address there, 204. The machine will only do static IP addresses. So we need to pick an IP address that it will be on, and it can't be used by anything else currently. We pick an IP address that's not being used, so we'll go with 200.
Okay.
If we want to confirm that that's not being used, just try and ping it. 1.200. If the device was on the network and it was live, then this would come back with a reply. It would send a little packet of data out, it would bounce back, and we'd get a reply. So we'll use 200, so that's done. So the next thing we want to do is, in your case, is set up this bridge, so that we can connect your machine into your network.
Okay, now this bridge is basically taking the place of a piece of wire, which would normally be the Ethernet cable between the router and the laser.
And because your machine is in your garage with...
My workshop.
Oh, workshop, yes, sorry, workshop. Because your machine is in your workshop and there's no physical cable, then if you get a device that's relatively inexpensive, called a bridge, that, as far as the machine is concerned, the machine thinks it's directly connected via wire. It's a transparent connection.
Yeah, but we're connected by Wi-Fi.
Yes, so it will convert the Ethernet signal from the machine to a Wi-Fi signal, which will then connect to your router. So there's your link.
Brilliant.
So this one that you bought is an access point, which probably does bridge mode, I'm hoping.
It does, definitely bridge mode.
Yeah, so it's multi-purpose. It's not just a bridge.
So is a bridge cheaper?
I think you'll probably find they're all much of a muchness. But the key thing is, because it's a device that can do more than one thing.
That's a multi-mode one, and I've checked that it did do bridge mode.
Yeah. So it just means that we know when we turn it on, we'll have to put it into bridge mode.
Okay.
So we need to find that in the menu, which I won't know off the top of my head, but it's good to just show where to look. So we need to connect this first of all to configure it. We'll turn it on, and we'll connect it in to the laptop directly, or your PC, just so that we can access the settings for this. Just like we did on the router here, we'll be putting in the IP address for this. In 99.9% of houses, the IP address will start 192.168.
Okay.
And then either 0 dot something sequential number or 1 dot something sequential number.
Yeah.
So they'll all be on this range because that's known as a private IP. To configure this,
and basically what you're doing is you're telling my router that there's another device that wants to access the router.
We will be.
That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's the end result.
Yeah.
We'll put this onto your network as a client.
Yeah.
And then the device connected to the cable on it will be then on the network.
Okay.
So to talk to this, instead of going via the Wi-Fi like we have been doing, we need to force the laptop to go via this cable.
Okay.
So
but that connection is only temporary. We must add. Yeah.
So for now, I'll go to the network connections. So we'll disable the Wi-Fi. The LAN tells me it's connected already, so which is good. It tells me this port is live.
Yep.
But now that I've turned off the Wi-Fi, if I try and use this browser and connect to the address for your access point, which in this case is written on the bottom, the default TP link address, http:// tplinkap.net, tplinkap.net, and then with a bit of luck, the address into the browser now that we're connected via cable.
Okay.
It's come up with the web interface for the access point. And the login details for this particular one is on the bottom, and currently, being as it's set on the default, we can tap the login in and we're in. So there's a quick setup for this one which may or may not work, we'll find out. So we'll run through this, change the login account. I'll go no for now, and then
and then we'll reset that off camera.
Reset that, off camera, So we've got look,
bridge mode, is it?
Yeah, well, you've got bridge with access point, but actually we just want a client.
A client, okay.
Yeah, it's still bridge mode.
Yeah.
So that will mean that anything that's coming into this port here will get sent out over Wi-Fi back to your router.
Okay.
So client. This is where we need your access point details.
Yeah, which I shall delete, don't worry.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so we should be able to click survey.
I mean, the only people that are going to be able to use that are people next door.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I've done a survey and it's seen these 3 access points, which we'll use that one.
Oh, that is the extension one, that DXT.
Yeah, because that'll be the strong signal once we're in the garage.
Well, exactly, yeah.
So we're on the...
So that TP-Link is now configured and connected up to my router. So we can now move that TP-Link out to the machine, and how does the machine then get connected back? You've got to tell it. Where are you?
That's what I said earlier about a static IP address.
Where are you going to give that IP address to the machine? On the machine itself.
We'll do it. We need to do it on
the machine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, on the front panel.
Right. So we'll now go out to the workshop and we'll connect this up to the machine. So here we can see the controller with the yellow cable there, being the Ethernet cable out of the controller that's now going to connect to the TP-Link. Now, I never had any intention of running this machine via a network, but circumstances forced me to do it because otherwise I can't tell you guys about some of the facilities that are available on RDWorks. So that's the main reason why I'm having this modification done. Okay, let's now go and see how the TP-Link is going to be configured to talk to this machine.
So the machine is connected on the cable.
Yep.
The Ethernet cable into our nice new bridge that's already configured. So this should connect to your Wi-Fi.
Yep.
At the moment it's saying it's down because we've not got the machine turned on.
I'm listening.
That's come up on there. So we're all connected.
Yeah, we're all
now,
connected.
We need to go to the front panel on the machine to configure the static IP. We've got our cable connected into the bridge, That's all turned on. That's all fine. Everything's ready except for the machine, which we need to put on the IP address which we worked out earlier. So because it's static IP address only, you manually have to configure it. So we'll go into our menu. We scroll here, you can see IP config, pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. IP config. So here we've got an IP address and a gateway. So currently 192.168.1.100. That may or may not be free already, but we know for sure that if we put it on 200, it'll be fine. Now, normally on any IP device that if you're used to configuring them, you'll know that normally you put an IP address and a subnet mask. For some reason, these show an IP address and a gateway. There's no good reason why you'd want to give it a gateway address unless it wants to be able to see the outside world, which we certainly don't want. I'm just going to leave that on a random address. We don't actually need to do anything with that. So I can't remember whether you need to reset it. So we've given that its new IP address. So we'll see if it's actually connected now. So I'll close your
RDWorks,
which you've had open. So like we did earlier, no, in fact I won't do it via browser. I'll go command prompt like we did earlier, and I'm just pinging the address, ping space, and then the IP address, and I'll see if I can see the machine. So I'm getting replies. In fact, the first ping took a second, so that's not very good, was it? There you go. We're nice and stable now. A couple of milliseconds it's taking to ping from here to the machine and back again.
Okay.
That tells me there we're connected to the machine, it's working fine.
Fine, brilliant. As I see it at the moment, it's from that laptop onto my router and all the way back from the router wirelessly to this TP link.
And then via the cable.
And then via the cable into the machine.
And the last thing we need to do is just configure RDWorks. So in RDWorks, we've got port setting.
Yep.
Now, by default, they always come up with a USB and auto for which port it is on the computer.
Yep.
So there's no other devices available there. But if you go to port settings...
So there's my port settings, yeah, okay.
So this little dialog pops up here, which will list all of the devices you've already configured, whether it's a USB device or if I click add down the bottom, so we'll say it's the 6090. No, it's not a 6090. We'll say it's
this is
4060.
a 4060.
There we go. And here we'll put in.
So that's basically its name, is it?
Yeah, just any string you want in there.
Okay.
And then press test. See, it works the second time, but the first time it came up with the firewall rule box that you have to accept for your laptop to be able to talk to the machine.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're blocking the ports it needs to talk to the machine. So
I had to allow
it on the firewall, and then you'll know when it works because you press test and you'll get port test success. Okay. So that's all good. So we'll OK that, and now here in our list we've got two.
Wow. So I can still use my USB connection.
You can.
Yep.
So if we just exit out of there, you don't have to tick that. Exit out of there. Down the bottom, you'll see you've got this extra device. So you can either go back to your USB if you direct.
Okay, USB auto, or basically call up for the machine.
We've now got our 4060
200
down the bottom, and it gives you in brackets the IP address.
Okay.
So now that's all set up.
I've got quite a few things to relearn on here now because I'm driving it. I shall be driving it from here. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is check this home position. And sure enough, it's sending it to the home X and home Y. But that's all it's doing. It's not the same as a reset. Because when I press the reset button, not only does it go to home, like that, it also resets to the previous origin position. Whereas when I press home, it does exactly that, sends it home.
if I select Z minus and drive the table down, I've got a similar facility on the Z axis, which will send it up to the top of the stroke, or I suspect to this position here where the sensor will detect it. So it's either or. Let's just check. Now I've got these strange numbers here called offset in X and Y, or they're just called offset, millimeters. Let's just see if I do, that's Y minus and that's X minus. So if I click that, I'm getting this 10 millimeter offset every jump. Click, click, and Y. Yeah, so I haven't got, and I think if I hold the button down, I don't get continuous Y. So all I can get is these increments of 10 millimeters at a speed of 50 millimeters a second. So that's interesting. That's a complete difference from operating on the keyboard. Well, our challenge to Wi-Fi enable this machine has now been successfully achieved. Using the machine in this mode is going to be a slightly different challenge for me, and I shall have to do some work in the background before I can talk to you guys confidently about how I use the machine in this mode. So thank you very much for your attention again today, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session.